The NES is a legendary retro system. Not only was it ahead of its time in terms of graphics, and not only did it single-handedly save the gaming world from the great game crash of the early 80s, it's also special to me because it was my first video game. Literally, Mario Bros on the NES was my first time playing a game. And getting my NES is one of my happiest memories. I'll share that one someday, but not today, because we have games to play. I've been on an epic quest to go through the entire NES game library and collect the best games that don't get talked about much. That's right, this is a Hidden Gems video. I've selected 5 games that sort of fly under the radar. Some of these I played when I was a kid, some of them are new to me as a grown-up, but all of them are great games worth playing, and I bet that there's at least a few here that you didn't know about. And I'm gonna show them to you, but first, I'm playing all these NES games on this. This is my new Smoky Black RG35XX Plus. I've been using this to test and play these games, and I also captured all the footage using the video out capabilities of this thing. You should check out my RG35XX Plus video if you want to know more about it. LitNXT sent this to me and asked me to show it off in a video, so I set it up intending to use it just for this video, but in the process I absolutely fell in love with it. This thing is just gorgeous. I love the smoky black, semi-transparent plastic, the all black controls. I have the Kuriki custom firmware installed on it. Check out this video if you want to know more about that. I have it loaded up with all my games, scraped all the box art. Awesome device and easy as heck to get up and running. If you want one of these, there's a link to where you can buy this on LitNXT in the description below. And if you do, make sure to use the promo code listed below as well to get 12% off. Not bad. And now, without further dawdling, let's find some hidden gems. There they are. That was easy. First up, we have a game that I loved when I was a kid. I was nuts about Darkwing Duck, which was a Disney show about a crime-fighting detective duck man. Not a man, he's a duck. I don't know. It was an awesome show with a fun, lighthearted, Batman-ish vibe to it, with an array of colorful characters and villains. My favorite villain was Liquidator, who was a dog who was made of water. It was my favorite show for a good portion of my life in the early 90s. I quit my paper route so that I could watch Darkwing Duck. So obviously I had my priorities figured out even at a young age. This game is made by Capcom and back in their glory days, and it really has the vibe of the Capcom games at the time, like DuckTales, Little Nemo, and especially Mega Man. You play as Darkwing Duck, obviously, and you begin by choosing a level in the classic Capcom style. There are only 3 levels available at the start, but more open up when you beat those. Each level is a different location in the city, and you're going there to confront one of the supervillains who control it. Sort of like Mega Man, you have a blaster, but you can also get extra weapons that you can switch between, like a plunger arrow that can create platforms or a gas bomb that shoots horizontally. There's also an emphasis on grabbing on to stuff. At most platforms you can grab on the underside to hang down, and there are lots of like jumping segments where you're jumping from handhold to handhold. Most enemies have a pattern to their attacks and defenses that you need to learn. Sometimes you'll need to dodge an attack and shoot when there's an opening. Sometimes you need to use your cape as a defense to protect you at just the right time. The game is not easy. I don't remember getting very far when I was younger, but I played it a ton just because I loved Darkwing Duck. And playing it now, yeah, it's really freaking hard. I admit that I had to use plenty of save states just to record this footage. But going back to it now, I'm confident in saying that this game is a hidden gem. It rarely gets talked about, but the action and level design and the art style is right up there with all the great Capcom games from this time period. This game I had vague memories of. I think maybe my uncle had this game or something. It seems so familiar. It's called Legacy of the Wizard. And as soon as I found this in my games list, I was like, oh my gosh, it's that game. And I fell in love with it all over again. It's about a family of dragon slayers. The game starts and you just see this family chilling in their medieval looking house. There's some old guys, some middle-aged guys, some young guys, and a cat, I think. And you get to pick one and that's your hero. Each character controls differently and each has different sort of attacks and weapons. The dad guy is a woodcutter and he has the highest attack power and he throws axes. The wife is sort of in the middle and she's like a wizard. The boy is sorta weak, but he's important because he's the only one who can do the story stuff with the dragon. And the girl, who's my favorite, she's a magic user. She throws little magic balls and she can jump the highest. And you can be the little pet who becomes a little dinosaur guy. It's a very common gameplay style game, basically just a side-scrolling platformer game where you can use projectiles and jump around and explore. But the unique thing is how the game changes based on which character that you have at the time. The monsters drop stuff when defeated, and out in the world there's shops to spend money and inns to rest at. There's a sort of meta progression because you can return home and switch characters but keep all the items and stuff that you've collected. So some characters can't reach certain areas and you'll need to switch to someone who can reach those, or some characters can't use certain items. The overarching vibe is that of an action puzzle game because you need to sort of map out the area and figure out who you need to be to get where and which items do what. One of the unique things about this game that make it stand out, and it's one of the reasons that I think I loved it so much when I was a kid, is the art style. This is classic NES pixel art in the purest sense. No fancy extra effects, just sprites and tiles. And there's so much attention to detail in the way the platforms and levels have like realistic-ish shadows and stuff. And just look at this box art, man. I want a freaking poster of this to put on my wall above my bed or something. This is one of my favorite NES games that I came across while I was doing my hidden gems hunting. It brought back lots of memories, and playing it as an adult showed me that it's a great, underappreciated game. Next up, we have a really, really great point-and-click adventure game called Deja Vu. I don't know if this is a hidden gem or not, to be honest. I remember hearing a lot about it in my Nintendo Power magazines when I was a kid, but I never hear anyone talk about it these days, which is a shame because it's so freaking good. I would have never appreciated this when I was a kid, but as an adult, it's one of the best NES games that I've ever played. It's made by the same people that brought us Shadowgate and Uninvited, which are two amazing games made in the same style that are also totally worth playing. I feel like this one is their magnum opus, though. You are a detective, and you wake up in a bathroom stall, and to your horror, you realize that you don't know who you are. You've lost your memory. You find your coat, which has some of your stuff in it, and then you start exploring. There's a list of actions on the bottom of the screen, like talk and hit, open and examine, and you click that stuff and then click on the stuff in the scene. You go from area to area. You need to take your time to try to find every little bit of interactive stuff in the scene, because if you try to fly through it, you'll miss stuff and you'll get stuck. There are keys to find which open doors. There are crime scenes that you need to investigate and figure out what happened. You can make your way to the street and there are people that you can talk to, even some dangerous people who are out to get you. There are secret areas that you can find by poking around and trying some unconventional things. The game is a noodle scratcher, but I wouldn't say that any puzzles are particularly difficult. The difficulty comes in the form of deadly events and areas that you need to learn to avoid. Luckily, the game has a generous checkpoint system, and of course you can use save states if you want to try something and then undo it. It's a really well-written, well-designed, mature game, and it's still fun to play today, which is not very common among point-and-click adventure games from this era. Give this one a go if you like what you see. Just don't forget to subscribe to TechDweeb. What if I told you that there was a great Jurassic Park game that you've never played? No, not that Jurassic Park. No, not that one either. No, not that one. That's not even a retro game. Oh, damn it. It's this one. The one on the NES, obviously. When Jurassic Park was released, it was a freaking phenomenon. Everyone was nuts about that movie, none more than me. I saw it in the theaters 5 times. I read the novel, I pre-ordered the movie on VHS, and my mom picked me up from school early to go and get it. And no joke, I told her it was the happiest day of my life. And it was the happiest day of my life until I found Jurassic Park on the NES like yesterday when I was hunting for hidden gems. No, I'm just kidding. It was a good day though. When the Jurassic Park games were released, the NES was nearing the end of its life. The Super Nintendo version of Jurassic Park was the big deal because it had Dolby surround audio and 3D first-person interior scenes. This was a big deal at the time. Nobody wanted to play a Jurassic Park game on the original Nintendo when the Super Nintendo had this. But there were lots of problems with the Super Nintendo version of the game. It was a big and open world, but it was also not a very well-designed game. The first-person stuff totally sucked, and just a general lack of information to the player. If you were like me, you probably just ended up wandering around forever in that game. Little did I know as I was wandering around in Jurassic Park on the Super Nintendo that a very similar but more focused version of the game existed on the NES. And while it didn't have 16-bit graphics or Dolby surround audio, it did have really good pixel art and a great simple style and the same tight top-down gameplay as the Super Nintendo version, while at the same time being more of a traditional level-based game design. It's a more focused Jurassic Park experience, and I think it works great just because of that. Jurassic Park as a franchise isn't a hidden gem, but this version of the game, the NES version, it definitely is. I never thought it was even worth playing, and I fired it up just out of curiosity, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. The game plays like a top-down action game, but with almost a survival element because you need to take care of your health and not waste your ammo, and you need to explore to find ammo and item pickups. Your goal is to find all the Velociraptor eggs in each level, and when you do, you'll be able to find the key card that will let you into the buildings to clear them out. Unlike the pseudo 3D interiors of the Super Nintendo version, here the perspective stays in that same top-down view, and it works way better like this. And between the stages, there are action-y challenge segments that add some spice to the formula. Don't let the stale name of Jurassic Park turn you off. This is a solid action game with dinosaurs. What more could you ask for in life? Nothing. And finally, we have Arkista's Ring. I had no idea what this game was. I'd never heard of it. I was going through my list of games, fired it up, not knowing what to expect. And at first, I guess I still didn't know what to expect. Yeah, it seemed like an adventure game like Legend of Zelda, but it played more like a shooter game. And I guess that's an accurate description, but there's a lot more to it than that. It has some adventure game elements because you collect items that make you more powerful. The levels are simple, pretty small as far as adventure games go, and most of them play out as less of an action game and more like a puzzle game. You can only shoot horizontally or vertically, so you'll be moving around to position yourself and your shots so that they hit the bad guys. And in each level, you need to figure out which enemies to defeat to reveal the key that will open the door to finish the stage. And because of the tight mechanical combat and the puzzle-ish game maps, the game feels almost more like an arcade game. It plays like a combination of Zelda, Gauntlet, and Pac-Man. I'm kind of struggling to describe it. I don't feel like I'm doing a good job, but I love playing it. I'm a sucker for some good old classic retro game style combat, and the vibe of this game really does it for me. There's a story to the game, not that you'll pay much attention to it. You play as an elf named Christine, and your job is to retrieve the stolen elven ring of Arkista from the big bad evil guy named Shogun, who's trying to cast the elven kingdom into darkness. Which really means that you just go through level after level and murder everything that moves with your elf bow, or the weapons that you find along the way. This is a long game too. There's over 120 levels, I think. There's something very nostalgic feeling about this one, even though I didn't play it back in the day. It just captures exactly the right vibe of games from this era. I'm kind of surprised that I didn't know about it because the game is great. The actual gameplay is tight and fun, the setting and the art style are cool, and the music. So grab your bow and your pointy plastic elf ears and fire up Arkista's Ring on your retro handheld of choice. Speaking of which, I'd like to thank LitNXT for sending me this RG35XX Plus. I'm really enjoying it. It's a perfect little handheld to play some good old NES games on. If you want to pick one up, I'll include a link in the description below. And that brings us to the end. I hope you enjoyed this first episode of NES Hidden Gems. I have a ton more to show you. I had there's 50 in my list, and I couldn't squeeze them all into one video, and I wanted to give myself enough time to talk about each one properly. So get subscribed if you haven't yet, because I definitely definitely plan on doing more in this series. And let us know your personal favorite NES hidden gems. I'd love to check yours out. If you like this video, then check out some of my other hidden gems videos, like this one, my Sega Genesis hidden gems video. That was a fun one. There's a link on the screen now and down in the description below. And that's it from me. I'm TechDweeb. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.